Hey guys, still here. Today in Wargame, a combined deck review slash gameplay video on the French deck. I hadn't played the French in quite a while, so I decided to make a quick deck for it and see how well these guys do. So, logistics, the average and the usual suspects, a fob, a standard command vehicle, VLRA logistics in case I cannot fly in my logistics, and if I can, I got the Pumas over there. There's really not too much you have in the sense of options here. If it's a conquest deck, you could argue that maybe the AMX 30B could be a better alternative. You still get 4 of them. They're slightly more expensive, and for 130 points you get a bit more armor. So they're decent units, but I decided to go with 7 command vehicles. It's a general deck after all, it's not really specifically designed to do any one thing. Alright, infantry. This is where the strength of this deck really is. The French infantry generally is very, very good. Especially the Legionnaires are units I really like. Those Eric's launchers combined with good running speed of 30 kph. It's a very small group, of course, so while they still take quite a bit of damage, you can put them virtually everywhere. And considering that every one of these units, except for the Commando Marines, is in the VAB, I know that if I combine a task force of these 4 different types of infantry, they're all going to arrive at the same location at the same time. I won't have any stragglers, and that's what I was going for with this deck. Because, yes, you do have other options. You have the AMX 10P. It's also a nice autocannon vehicle, amphibious at that. But it's only 110 kph road speed. The other one that I have is Commando Marine. In case I want to either do a flanking maneuver, I want to quickly send in infantry, quickly get reinforcements, and of course, the Panther itself can provide a little bit of ground support with those rocket pods, which for rocket pods are still remarkably accurate at 30%. Supports, again, I decided to go for fast units. This is not exactly a quick response deck, but you might as well argue that it is. The Grotal, wheeled vehicle, 150. I especially picked the Grotal in this deck because it's one of those fast wheeled vehicles. So again, this thing is going to move up with the rest of the group. The VPM 120, again, wheeled vehicle. I will usually not send them in with the first wave, but I can if I want to, and most importantly, these things can shoot and scoot. They can fire a couple of rounds and then get the hell out of there. AMX 30 Rolands for medium / longer range AA, and 1 Caesar in case I want to do some really accurate sniping of units. I know I can get 2, but usually 1 tends to be enough, and I can spend the other 120 points that I would not spend on a second Caesar or on, for example, more frontline units. Tanks, well, this is always where the French were lacking a little bit. I have 4 Leclercs, I have 1 group of AMX 40s, prototypes of course, and 1 group of AMX 32s. There are some other interesting units over here, such as the AMX 10 RC. I decided to go against these because I already have the Recon units. Sorry, no, not the Recon units, the ERC 90s, which pretty much do the same thing. If you compare these two, you're going to see that the ERC 90 is slightly cheaper. It has a little bit less accuracy, 300 meters less range on the gun, a little bit less punch, a lot less armor. So yes, the ERC 90 is inferior, especially if you look at engagements at maximum range. But these guys were mostly there for fire support. I don't really use the ERC 90 in direct confrontations with other heavily armored units. Next up, Recon, AMX 3090. It's a nice flank defender. It can have a lot of rounds a minute if you wanted to. 13 rounds a minute rate of fire. It's not too fast at 110, so it does not keep up with the rest of the group if I'm going to send one in quickly. But it's a combined Recon unit with good optics, quite a bit of firepower, and heat. So it's always going to do some damage against a target, even if it cannot penetrate it. Next is the Alouette, just your standard Recon helo. You don't really get a lot of options. Yes, you get the Gazelle. The Gazelle only has good optics versus the Alouette, which has very good optics. Both are very small helos, and while you could argue that the cannons on these Gazelles come in very useful, more often than not my helicopters don't tend to get that aggressive. VBL Mistral is pretty much a mandatory unit in this deck because it's such a nice multi-role unit. It can go against infantry if you want it to. I really wouldn't recommend it, but it has a machine gun. And of course it has the Mistral missiles, which are really quite capable of dealing with helicopters. Especially if you don't expect this thing, you're going to get a nasty surprise. And then some standard hussars in just your standard recon spotting role. Vehicles, ERC-90s, as well as the Mephisto. Decided on the Mephisto because, again, wheeled vehicle, nice and fast, quite accurate. AP is a little lacking. It could be better. 25 would be ideal, because then you know you can always do some damage to a unit. This one, of course, fires heat, so it will always do some damage, but 25 definitely makes a difference. And they're pretty cheap units, just 40 pointers. I can park these on flanks where I need a bit of ATGM support. Helos, I have quite the diversity here. The Tiger Hat, the Tiger Hap, the Cassiope in case I want to either try a flanking maneuver or deal with quite a bit of infantry. Also, don't write these things off when dealing with transports because they have 3 AP. They are really accurate, and with that combined, they can chew through quite a bit of infantry as well as vehicles very quickly. The Gazelle Hot 2, in case I want to quickly engage any tanks that might pop up in unexpected locations, because these things come in at a 310 kph. At 55 points, they're not too much expenditure on the budget, so I'll probably be able to field them. And combine that with 25 AP, good accuracy, and even pretty good accuracy on the move, and you have a really nice unit that you can quickly throw into gaps where you think, hey, there might be a tank rush coming this way, or I already see the tanks coming. And finally, the Celtic. I'm not sure I'm going to be keeping this one. It's a nice AA helicopter. It's just that in the game that I'm about to show you, I didn't use it. Doesn't mean it's a bad unit. It just means that I haven't quite found a synergetic role for it with the rest of this deck. Alright, Air. 1 Rafale F1, 2 Super 8 Indars in case I'm dealing with heavy tanks, 1 Jaguar A, and 1 Mirage F1 CT. The thing that I'm missing here is a standard bomber. For that I have both the Caesar and the VPM. So I'm hoping that between these two I can still get bombed, or I can still get quite a bit of HE damage on targets that need to get damaged. And as such, I hope that I don't really need one of those bombers, such as the Mirage 5F. Now, considering I have quite a large helicopter fleet, I decided to get a Jaguar A. If you just have the Rafale and Super 8 Indar and maybe 1 bomber, you could argue that a seed is not that expensive, or sorry, not that important, because you don't have that many things that can get shot down. In this situation, with especially a larger helicopter tab, I decided to go with the Jaguar A. Alright, let's get to the battle. Alright, let's put these Frenchies to the test. What we have here is a team of Sparky, Kieta and myself against Goose, Kramik and Radilapsi. I'm not sure if these guys were a team or not. Their stats were pretty good, and I really was not expecting to win this game. It's a game I played last night. I was really damn tired after quite a bit of work that day. So I thought, yeah, well, I can do a quick game of Wargame. I'm French, so I can always retreat. Sorry, mandatory. I can always retreat if I have to. And my retreat is going to be at least fast with all these wheeled vehicles. Anyway, my objective here is Delta. I picked Delta because I don't really have a lot of heavy armor. And that means that I do not really stand a good chance in engaging prolonged assaults with heavy armor versus heavy armor. I do, however, stand a pretty good role with the Erixes and the Rimas, short-range anti-tank weaponry. You can pretty much jump these missiles over from these small sections of woods over here. And with that, this is an area where the French could be very effective. Over on the right, we're going to have Sparky. He's going to be covering Bravo Echo Alpha. And on the left, we have Kieta, who's going to be covering Hotel Golf. Potentially Mike, which would be a nice bonus objective. Alright, as for my deployment, I decided to go with everything fast. Delta is quite a way out. I want to get there before the enemy does. And if the enemy is not using helicopters, I should be able to beat him to the punch there. So what I'm starting up with is of course quite a few Crotals. You never know if you're going to encounter helicopters, and if you are, then all of these VABs are completely defenseless. I have, and I cannot really highlight it here, I have a mix of Rima and Legionnaires. That's the VAB 2013s, and then some in the standard VABs, that's the standard Recon Infantry. So that's the, I forgot their name. One Leclerc for backup. I know he's going to arrive a little bit later, because it's a tracked vehicle, it can only do 110 on roads. And then over in the back we have the ERC 90s. Again, the wheeled vehicles, so they can arrive very, very quickly. And make sure that I have at least a bit of anti-vehicle fire support, which exceeds the range of my anti-tank weapons and can still deal damage to transports without putting all my infantry at risk. Alright, let's get this game going. Moving off, moving off. It is Conquest, by the way, I hadn't quite mentioned that. And we are... bloody hell, I'm really scatterbrained today. We are on the very, very large version of Highway to Seoul. That's the map we're playing at. Anyway, decided to split off one ERC-90. I know it's not really a spotter unit. It has poor optics. But it still might be able to use some of Sparky's recon units that eventually end up on these tree lines to provide a little bit of fire support and engage units that are on the flanks here. Now, I quickly rushed into Delta, and at this point I was really expecting to find resistance here. So you can see that some of my transports are just stopping here, thinking, well, this is where I'm gonna go. And I'm gonna offload here, because the chances of me running into infantry is getting quite extreme. I don't want my units getting overwhelmed instantly, let's not go there. And then I encountered nothing. Yeah, sure, we have a K-29. It gets hit, and I assumed killed by the Crotal. I don't think they were expecting the unit there that fast. But this was definitely a nice kill, and here we engage the first infantry. Rimas got offloaded just in the nick of time, as my VABs were able to kill off one of the transports for the Morskayas. At this point though, I'm a little bit outgunned. I have my Rimas, but against Morskaya's 15-man squads, it's going to be quite the challenge for them to survive. The VABs are still there and kicking, but, well, one HGM and they're done. We also have a T-72B1. That is not really going to be anything that my ERC can handle. So I'm going to have to try and be a bit careful here. And instead, I'm using this tree line cover here to move up the Legionnaires. Because from over here, the Legionnaires should be in range to take out these T-72s. Now, at this point I misplayed here on the right flank, because I had a secondary group of Rima, but I did not send them forward. I was too busy with the Legionnaires, which just took out one T-72B1 there. So we have 5 surviving Rimas, the other 19 Rimas are now moving forward right into another group of VDV. And of course, with the Rima engaging and the VDV engaging with both their AK-74 and their RPK-74, they will not be able to fire their Vampire unless specifically ordered to do so. So this is when I rush in the VABs, because with those autocannons you can get quite a bit of fire support. Now I tried putting the Legionnaires a little bit further forward. That didn't really work out, as you saw. I ran right into Tunguska on the back of the line. That was their AA unit, and my VABs were trying to engage the Tunguska, and they actually got it. Tunguska is not that heavily armored, so even at medium to short range, 2 AP from an autocannon that's really not that effective or not that accurate can still get the kill. And at this point I was really, really surprised. I completely wiped out the enemy in Delta. I thought, where the hell are these guys? Where do we go from here? I was really not expecting to capture this territory. I really hadn't thought that I would be able to catch all of this terrain and keep hold of it, most importantly. So I'm moving up my ERC on the flank. I have my AA units coming forward a little bit more, because now we're starting to deal with Mi-24 VPs. That's not something that my infantry can really survive against. Fortunately, the Crotals are standing by to do their AA duty. They are unfortunately not too accurate. They get one hit. But of course an Mi-24 VP is going to need a few more. And this is where I really appreciated the speed, especially the off-road speed for the Crotal. 70 kph off-road. By the way, I spotted the command tank that was probably being sent to Delta. I don't think they were expecting me to push forward that quickly, so that makes two of us. I tried to get a little shot on them with the Legionnaires. I didn't quite get there in time. And of course, ERC-90s against the command tank. It's not really that much of a chance, but I thought that maybe I could spot it and potentially get some other units killed off. There's the command tank, rushing back into cover. And that's when I ran into another gunship. This is not quite an MIA. Sorry, it is... is that a Sokol? Yeah, it's a Sokol. So that's not really something that my ERCs were able to win against. Now I was pushing my AMX-32 forward here in order to deal with enemy transports, intercepting those before they got here. And at this point I'm dealing with a second player. Goose decided to show up on my flank as well. And Goose was starting to provide quite some well, high-end infantry here. So I'm putting up a sort of defensive barrier here with Vabs and Remas. Even my Leclerc has made it to the front line at this stage, in order to deal with these guys before they get too close. But I was not really able to get good shots off thanks to this ridge line. This is tricky. You need to put your vehicle right on the edge before you're able to engage the transports. And then, of course, these guys were providing fire support to the infantry as they were rushing in. So I was starting to get a little bit pushed back here. Now, this is where I decided to deploy the logistic helicopters, just to reinforce and resupply the units that had taken some damage, also to deal with the Crotals. These things really needed some reinforcements, or sorry, some resupplying. And as you can see, the rest of my infantry is starting to get quite thin. I'm sending an AMX-32 forward here. This is not really the right play, because at this range he's never going to be able to get his gun down far enough in order to deal damage to the infantry, and the infantry just needs to get close and wipe out the AMX-32 altogether. Good use of smoke here from Red 4. And this is where I started making some mistakes. I'm going to pause it here. On this map, if you're resupplying Delta, you really need to keep a close eye on where exactly reinforcements are going to come in from. The game initially, if you deploy them, say here, which is what I'm doing now, it sends them in from from Charlie. If you're resupplying Delta and say click units here, so this is where you deploy them, they're going to come in from Alpha. That is something that, well, I like this side reinforcement zone. I really hate about this map, because you don't really expect your units to come through an enemy front line. Because my units, I'm not sure if it's already happened or it's going to happen. Yeah, these were French reinforcements. These guys were supposed to go to Delta. So as you can see, there was a VAP 2013 and an AMX-32, I think. They ran right through the front line. Easy pickings. The tank was side on. It was never going to survive. So on this map, yet again, make sure you know exactly where your reinforcements are going to come from. And in my case, I started just deploying reinforcements over here, so I could then make sure I could safely get them to this zone before they were going to get wiped out. The same thing had to happen to the 2013 and the MX-1390. The 1390 didn't really see that much combat, I think, not this one anyway. It's more set up as a defensive unit over here. Because one of the earliest matches I played on Highway to Seoul, I wasn't aware that this is some sort of vision gap. This highway is lower than the rest of the terrain, and as such you can get quite the column through it without being detected. So make sure you have some recon units here at all times. Anyway, I'm holding on, but only just. Most of my infantry at this point has been wiped out. I still have some legionnaires left, I still have some hussars left, but that's just about it. Fortunately, the ERC-90s are there to deal with the transports, before the transports can provide fire support and kill off the legionnaires. And this is where I really like these two cheap 20-pointers, because they just need to fire a few times in order to deal with enemy infantry. And with a rate of fire of 10 rounds a minute, they are quite capable of doing just that. Unfortunately, this is when Goose started pushing in further with his Panzerjägeri. I don't really have anything I can field against these at the moment. Surprisingly, this VAB was far more effective than I had expected. And at this point, the only thing that's still holding the line is the MX-32. I'm not even going to count the Hussars as a combat unit. And the Leclerc. So I have quite the problem here on my flank. Now further units are being brought in. This is where, once again, the Legionnaires really come to shine. With the ERC-90s in backup, you quickly wipe out units here. Now, I think that Kramek over here was getting quite upset with my AA, which was constantly shooting down his high-value helicopters. I didn't quite cover it, but there was a Kula over there, which I quickly shot down. And at this point he just decides not to micromanage the MiG-25, which is what I thought was surprising. Unfortunately, that thing has quite a lot of ECM, so I waste all of the ammo from all the Crotals dealing with it. So you could say, in a sense, that jet still achieved his objective, because my AA is no longer capable of firing. I relocate the Crotals because these things fired up so many missiles that they basically started pointing to themselves, here I am. So moving these guys out, and in order to quickly get some new infantry in, I decided to make use of those Commander Marines in the Panthers. Panthers are standing by, and this one has already fired off some rocket pods. So I can quickly get some fire support for the Commander Marines, because another wave of VABs is coming in, or sorry, ERC-90s is coming in, but it's going to take them quite a while before they get there. And especially the Panthers, coming in from Foxtrot, they just had to make a straight line here, no problem at their, what is that, 330 I think? 300 kph speed. Now, further smoke being put up on the left. I did see a unit over here, so I decided to mark it for myself, not so much for my teammates there. Panther tries to get some blind rocket pods off, as for some reason a group of Spetsnaz pushes forward without any sort of fire support. And once again, a VAB 2013 gets quite the free kills over here. Or at least that's what I thought, until the VDV showed up. Now, I'm not exactly sure what I was planning with the Hussars here. That was a massive error. And apparently I had not quite killed off the Akula, as I had expected. And with all of my AA needing a resupply, I don't really have the capability of dealing with this thing. Fortunately, it's not really coming too close. Now I can see some skirmishes moving around the sides. Kramek was pushing along here as well. Supposedly they had quite a bit of this mountaintop here covered with units. I never really saw why that would be a problem. Because I thought the more units he dedicates to capturing that mountain, which really does not hold any strategic value at this point. Yes, you can break out the Gulf, you can break out to the back of Fox, maybe to Charlie if you're fast enough. But it doesn't give you any conquest points. And pretty much since the start of the game, since I was able to quickly grab and hold on to Delta, we were getting a +2. So the ball was firmly in Red Force court at this point. They really had to start doing something in order to get these under control. That's exactly what they did. At this point they pushed in a command vehicle. You see mine's still alive over here. They pushed in their command vehicle, and as such are neutralizing the zone. I don't exactly know where it is, but I know I'm still being pushed back, and quite unsurprising really, because now I'm dealing with 3 players here. They decided, or what seemed to be deciding to gang up on me here, with 3 players starting to push into Delta. Delta was, I think, for them the easiest zone to get, at least especially if you're pushing in units from 3 different players. Now, my Leclerc at this point opened up on the Proletary and their transports and got promptly punished for it, as it got hit by, I think it was a Super Galeb. So much for my Super Heavy. And at that point I don't really have anything that can deal with the M84AN. I still have a Hot 2 back in my line. This thing is hovering low. Actually it's landed even. It's taking on supplies from Logistic. Now this is where these units really come in handy. Because an M84AN is quite the expensive tank at 110 points. Missile goes in and hits the tank. Takes it down to 3 hit points. Second missile goes in. Surprisingly, the tank reappeared, and I got it. So this one just happened to kill off something twice its own value. And by setting up a small forward resupply post here, I was able to keep the Gazelle alive for quite a bit longer than I had expected, really. Reinforcements are starting to come in. I now have a group of mortars over here. I have some further ERC 90s standing by on the sidelines, mostly to make sure that the infantry doesn't push up here. I know that against AGGMs these things are particularly weak, but you can do quite aggressive scouting with them. And as you can see, there's further reinforcements coming in, which are immediately getting shot at by the ERCs. One already got wiped out, and that means that the infantry inside is going to take some damage. Now, this is when we're dealing with another tank. At this point I wasn't quite sure what it was. That's how weak my Recon game was at this point. I should have spent more on Recon in hindsight, but I just spent most, if not all, the points that I had coming in immediately on getting new reinforcements. Just getting more infantry. Now, my Legionnaires, I dropped them off immediately in the middle here, because I thought they were never going to get into this sector. They didn't have enough backup to push there. There was a massive smokescreen being put up on the right, and as such I was getting quite worried that there was going to be an offensive here. So I decided to pull back the Legionnaires, but not before they took out quite a few transports. And especially the XA-186, that's not something that you want to have alive with your infantry too long. Now I saw a command tank moving about here. It was the T-72 command that we saw before. That means that they have a secondary command unit in this zone. So this is when I inform my teammates that, guys, I will not be able to push here. I'm barely holding as it is, because I'm getting pushed on by 2, if not 3 players here. I need you guys to make a move elsewhere. And that's what they started to do. Red has at this point neutralized this zone, which is getting engaged, and unfortunately he lost the bomber, but we neutralized the command vehicle there, so we're still neutral. And I said, if you can neutralize, for example, Mike, or on the right flank neutralize Echo, that would really help. Just keeping up the pressure. And they can push as hard into Delta as they want to. I can just hold out for a little while, and as long as I can hold out and you guys can keep putting pressure on them on the other sides, we should be able to win this. So I was not going to do a full retreat, but I was starting to get pushed back. I realized that, and I pretty much decided to go along with it. Or at least that's the story I'm spinning around it now. That's not actually what happened. What happened is that I was getting quite nervous about the constant throw or the constant push of infantry on my lines, as well as the Moderna, which I had absolutely nothing to counter with, other than, you could argue, some mortars. And I think that at this point the HOT 2 had been killed off by one of the AA units. So I was dealing with Moderna. My infantry supplies were running low. We had units far at the back of our lines here, which my Cassiopes decided to pretty much a flyby gun run at. And I was just hoping I could hold on to this zone for long enough for my teammates to be able to just neutralize other zones, get that income ticking up long enough, and as long as the French could do a bit of skirmishing here, we should be fine. As you can see, some, if not all of these units need some sort of resupply or reinforcements. Some units are blatantly parked out in the open, right in the middle of a crater at that. I was getting quite busy managing all of these units, and I started making more and more mistakes. Now, the Commander Marines quickly being dropped off, Panthers already taking off again. Commander Marines, I did not immediately task with another objective. I should have brought these guys into any sort of tree line here, because this would be quite the nice target for HE MLRS. That would have been a very, very easy kill for them. And Commander Marines are not cheap. 35 points. I'm going to try and keep these guys alive as long as possible. Now let's see what Kid is doing on the left. He's taking the brunt of the HE damage. He has quite a few Panzer Grenadiers, Commander's Para. He's using a Eurocorps deck, by the way. His Panzer Grenadiers are getting heavily engaged. And so far, he does not seem to be bringing in another command unit yet, so that must be a little bit further down the line. We still have units in these woods, again, I was quite happy that they were going to send units into these woods. More units here, less units there. At least that was my standing theory at that point. This is when I saw quite a few more tanks, as well as, of course, transports. 185s, sorry, I mentioned these as XA-186 before, I think. XA-185s. I have an AMX-32, which is trying to get a shot into them. Doesn't really get a good shot. My Gazelle, a new Gazelle at that, Gazelle Hot 2 was able to kill off one of these tanks before it made it to the tree line. And that's when I quickly had to withdraw it, because we had a couple of ROMs coming in. And last time I checked, there were some, one if not multiple Scrajets on the left. So I was really not too eager about sending in helicopters here again. That meant that my supply lines for logistics, as well, there's the Scrajet, for logistics as well as reinforcements from the Panthers were not going to be as quick. So I'm trying to get another hot in before I realized that there was too much AA. You can see that I sent in the Jaguar to deal with that and open up the skies again to my helicopters. Didn't really work out. I think we got the AA in the end. But still, there was more AA than I was willing to risk my helicopters with. And unfortunately, just as the Grotal killed a helicopter, it got wiped out by the tank, the Wilk over there. Wilk versus AMX-32 is not a fair fight. The Wilk is really going to win that, unless it gets some sort of another unit pushing on them. And there was just enough break in the enemy AA that I was able to put another missile into it and at least force it back for a while. Now, I'm not sure where they... here they are. I had these under a hotkey, my mortars. With, 5 HE. They can get quite a bit of damage in on enemy AA units. As you can see, I'm backing up all of my helicopters at this point. I do not want these guys to get killed off anytime soon, because there are still more heavies rolling into this territory. So I know that there is... I think this was the Sava. Yeah, the Sava over here. Strop over there. Strop almost wiped out another Panther, but by doing so it gave its position away and I was instantly able to switch fire with the VPMs onto the Strop. No idea if I killed it, but at least I can keep putting pressure right onto these AA units and hopefully scare them off enough, potentially kill them off, so that I'm able to bring in my helicopters again. And potentially deal with these tanks that are seemingly all happily hiding in this tree line. What they probably don't know is that all that I have over here is 5 Rima. These are not really going to be much more than a speed bump for the tanks and other units that are hiding in this tree line. So we still had 17 minutes left. We had about 160 points to go. We had the advantage, so we were just holding on to what we had. At least I was. You can see I got to about here initially, and now I decided to fall back. Reed pushed back all the way over here. Sparky, fortunately, was making some headway into this zone. He was able to capture this building over here, resupply it, and we have a command unit. With that, Echo gets neutralized. We get a +1. Pretty much at the same point, Kieto was running in with his own command unit. He didn't have that much of a foothold in Mike, but it was enough. We were able to get another command unit in here. If you can get a hold of, or at least neutralize both Mike and Echo, you can get that +3 ticking again. If you can get the +3, that should allow you to quickly win the game. So that's what I was banking on. Now, complete misplay here by me with the Leclerc. I immediately get punished for it. They thought, or they probably saw it coming in before. Super Galeb once again flies in. And these guys never fly alone, apparently. Their air cover was right on point. I think these guys were pretty well coordinating this, because we saw consistent combined strikes of a Super Galeb with an L-19. This is Red Elapsy. And Goose with his Seria 30 and the MiG-29. So these guys were definitely prepared for my Leclerc. And once again, I did not have any super heavy firepower over here. I did have some Legionnaires. As you can see, the Rima were no longer there. I still have the mortars, which are immediately putting pressure onto this territory, or onto this area where I hope to get some damage in. Specialny did take some damage, and this is where things got really interesting. My VAB was, what I think, able to deal with the Specialnys over there. Super Heavy comes in. This is the Moderna, so I thought, well, I can at least do some damage to it. Legionnaires got one missile off. That's when I try and pull them back. Decide against it, fire again, and they decide to go after the Specialnys instead. So we know that this thing has taken some damage, but not nearly as much damage as it's going to need before it gets killed off. And at this point, Kieta had accomplished his mission of neutralizing Mike, so we're at a +3. And we're very quickly ticking up in points. Now, to add further complications to my already weak position, this is where I got a phone call. So I had to go off comms, and I couldn't completely manage all of my units to the best of my ability. Of course, phone calls means attention is distracted. But so far, with a +3, they really need to do something really quickly, or we're going to win this game in 2 to 3 minutes. And of course, this is when they came in with everything they had. Goose came in with his XA-185s. We have, what is it, Kramek over there was beat their 70s. I have virtually nothing left. Commander Marines are still there, on point, dealing with the transports. And the infantry that got hit quite heavily have survived, but only just. We're taking artillery fire, actually, we're taking smoke fire over here. Somebody's putting up a smoke screen. AMX-40 has arrived on the front line, but is not really able to do much, not with that smoke. I have a spotter, which is about to be blinded by the smoke as well. So I decided, screw it, but you're going to push the AMX-40 right through the smoke and hope to get some damage in on whatever we can find. At this point, I think he engaged the Moderna. Moderna went, nope. Immediately wiped out the AMX-40. One shot, not a problem for him. Let's see, Kieta got, I think, forced to move his vehicle out. What happened here? Why are we no longer at a +3? I'm not really sure. Oh, there we go. It's probably because the command vehicle is worried. SU-25 flies in. I'm not exactly sure why. And since I had some points and was not really too concerned... There we go, that's the Moderna, by the way. I did sacrifice the Eton Dar, but at least I took out the Moderna. I was not really too concerned with points. I thought that we had him at this point, 477. So I decided to go in with well, whatever I had left. AMX-30 Roland already brought in quite a while ago. Another Roland coming in from the other end. Of course, it's too little, far too late. Because at this point I had already lost 2 super heavies to enemy aircraft. These guys just kept coming in, kept striking. And there was really not that much that I did about that. Should have done a long time ago. And with that, we get to 500 points. As Sparky's reinforcements are just coming in. So, to my surprise, I was able to get a positive score there. 2860 versus 2415. These other guys did very well as well. Kieta had quite a few incursions on his flanks. I didn't cover those in the video, but you may have been able to keep track of the minimap and saw what was happening there. Sparky held his side, was able to neutralize another zone for a +1, and was able to reinforce my lines just as I needed it. But by that point we had already won. Now, as per popular demand, here is the kill list. The Crotal, I'm not exactly sure if it survived, but it definitely got some good kills there. This is the Crotal that was on the leftmost side. It was the first unit to get a kill, and it killed off a Ka-29TB, which did return fire on it a little bit, damaging the Crotal but not killing it. Through the helicopter crash, the Spetsnaz VMF also died. This thing was able to get the final shot into the MiG-25BM seed, did some damage to the Akula, enough to take it down, and took down a Super Puma. I think that this might have been one of the units that were trying to flank us over the mountainside. Then we have some VABs popping up every now and then. These guys were mostly instrumental in allowing my infantry to take out units. because through their suppressive fire the enemy infantry was starting to get weakened quickly, at least in their morale, making them less combat effective and allowing my Rimas or my Legionnaires to take them out. Legion 90, look at these guys go. T-72B1, XA-180, presumably with the Yekiri inside, and 2 T-55s. I never even spotted these, but apparently they did. T-72B1 got killed off by the AMX-32. That's more luck than skill, because an AMX-32 against the T-72B1, I think that the B1 has a lot more armor and a far better gun. So the fact that the AMX-32 got a win here might indicate that the T-72B1 was already weakened by something else. Or it got a lucky side shot. Rima's taking out some transports and some Panzer Yekiri. Keep in mind that these are not in the same transport. Completely different nationality, different deck, different player. Leclerc was, well, it was able to turn a profit, but only just. M84AN is 110 points. D55 Merida is, I think, 55 to 60. And then a couple of transports. So yeah, it made its money back, but only just. And then it got wiped out by one of the anti-tank plane strikes. Legionnaires got some kills here and there. The Gazelle, look at that guy. M84AN, another Recon tank, and a T-72B1. This is exactly why I have these in my deck. They're fast, they're small, they're difficult to hit, they're damn accurate, and with that missile they hit quite hard. Especially side shots are gonna more often than not one-shot a tank. And keep in mind that these ERCs, while they don't, well, you do see them quite often in the kill list. I mean, they were able to not always get the kill, but at least get the damage in, allowing other units to then take credit for the kill. So I really liked the ERC 90s over here. These guys did a fantastic job at keeping the transports at bay. And the transports that they have, Vidras, XD5 KTs, those are not things that you want to have close to your infantry, because they're going to chew through them very quickly. So that skirmishing warfare with the with the ERCs and the Commander Marines, these guys doing the damage to the transports, and these then either finishing off the transport or doing damage to anything that was surviving from the inside. That worked out rather well this time. FAB 2013, again, look at that. Yekiri 90, Specialny, XA186 or XA180s. I like the performance of this deck overall. It's not going to perform too well everywhere, as I mentioned at the start. It doesn't have the armor to do that. But more often than not, it is going to be able to do quite well in these skirmishing effects. These skirmishing maps where you really have to pick your side. You really have to find the strong or the best area for your units to go. But overall, it can definitely do it very well over there. Now, of course, it took some losses. The Legionnaires got wiped out by the Tunguska. That was particularly painful at the start to watch. And my 24 VP took out some Legionnaires. I think overall there was not really one type of unit that did the most damage. You can see infantry, tanks, helos, a bit of everything. Yeah, and that Moderna, that was really annoying. This thing was such a problem that I had to throw an Etendar at it in order to wipe it out. So, there we go. Now, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to try this deck for yourself or use it as a base pattern and then build from there, the deck is in the description down below. And if you would like to help me continue making videos, then please consider becoming a Patreon. You can always use further support there. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day, and I'll see you soon for new videos.